In this video, I'll be going over 5 general rules of thumb for choosing a coding bootcamp. As a coding bootcamp graduate myself, and now having worked in the industry for over 6 years as a software engineer, I consider the coding bootcamp that I attended to have been one of the best investments of my life. That said, there are a lot of pitfalls in this industry and a lot of bad actors. As a former bootcamp instructor myself, I have a unique perspective on how these campuses operate and the inner workings of these institutions. And let me just say this, you don't want to choose any bootcamp. I'm making this video for anyone who's thinking about attending a coding bootcamp so you can make the best decision possible. However, these are my own opinions based on my own experiences. Please take it for what it's worth. Okay, let's dive in. Rule number 1 is to find a selective program. If there's one rule that you should abide by when choosing a coding bootcamp, this is the one. There are 3 things that selective bootcamps do better than their non-selective competitors. Number 1 is that selective programs can cater to the needs of well-prepared students with a general baseline of cognitive ability. Trying to serve all skill levels lowers the bar of expectations for all students. Second, selective programs ensures a higher quality group of peers. Having a social group where you feel like you belong has a big impact on your motivation and trajectory. You want to strive to be motivated and surround yourself with others who are also motivated. Third, selectiveness dictates the effectiveness of a program. Starting out with great students is the easiest way for a bootcamp to keep its promise of graduating students and placing them into jobs. Selectiveness is the most reliable signal of program quality that you can observe from the outside without actually joining the bootcamp. So you want to do your homework and look long and hard at exactly how selective a program is before joining one. Rule number 2 is to find a reasonably expensive program. This rule is counterintuitive, but let me explain. The fact that you pay a steep price for joining a coding bootcamp is the reason why you stick with the program. There is a strong financial disincentive to slack off. You don't want to be throwing money down the drain. But in addition to the financial accountability, you also want a program that knows their value in the marketplace. A great program will charge what they're worth and over-deliver on the promise. Keep in mind that you're learning a skill that can earn you well above 6 figures for the rest of your life. That said, don't be foolish and believe that any program that costs an arm and a leg is worth what they ask for. Be sure to balance this advice with your own research on course reviews. Reach out to alumni to hear personal anecdotes. Assess the selectiveness of the program by trying to get in, even if you don't have the intent to join. Make sure you can justify the price and don't just blindly accept the costs. Rule number 3 is to find a program that pushes your scheduling comfort levels. Whether you're looking for a part-time program because you have commitments that you cannot drop, or a full-time program that is fully immersive, the reality is that you can do more than 40 hours of work a week. While I don't advocate anyone work too much and for too long, seasons of change requires intense action. This means you have to work more than you're used to. No one learns a completely new skill and gets good enough to get hired as a professional without putting in some serious dedication and effort. You want a program that pushes the limits on what you can accept here, because the more time you spend on coding, the better you're going to get at it. This season of change is not the time to take it easy. This is the time to make your transformation a reality. Rule number 4 is to prioritize fundamentals over specialized skills. Coding bootcamps tend to put themselves into categories like web development, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, or whatever the latest trending topic is. These are useful to distinguish between different topics that you're interested in learning, but don't let this fool you. Fundamentally, you still need to learn how to code. Language and expertise in a domain of software engineering only matters a little bit later in your career, not at the start. When you have 0 years of experience and all you have to show are small projects, all you really need right now is to gain more experience and more opportunities to code. You want to be able to show a meaningful body of work to recruiters. You want to face challenging problems in your projects so that you have anecdotal experience you can draw on in your interviews. You want to get acquainted with more software engineering principles so there aren't huge gaps in your conceptual understanding. This means that the language or domain of expertise that the coding bootcamp teaches matters far less than the class of bootcamp altogether. The class of bootcamp that you want is one that prioritizes fundamentals over specific skills. Look to see the following. Does the bootcamp jump straight into high-level tooling or specialized skills? Or does it start out with things like the nuances of the language that you're going to be working in, or data structures and algorithms, which are the fundamentals of computer science? And in general, do they emphasize the importance of general problem-solving ability? The core skill of all software engineers is that they solve problems. At Hack Reactor, we always spent the first 2 weeks weeks out of the 6 weeks of educational material on JavaScript, the language, and computer science fundamentals like data structures and algorithms. That's 33% of the teaching material spent on the basics. Then, only in week 3 did we dive into the libraries and frameworks that you actually use on the job. And I would even argue that these later lessons were actually more about programming principles and learning the fundamentals of web development more than they were about the specific technologies themselves. Without good coverage of the fundamentals and the foundations of software engineering, you'll be put on a road of inefficient learning. Find a curriculum that covers fundamentals first. Stay away from programs that don't. Rule number 5 is don't get caught up on the language. Programming is about exercising logic to implement algorithms that solve problems. A programming language is just a way for us humans to communicate an algorithm to a machine so that it can perform it. The language is not the logic itself. Don't get fixated on the language that you learn at the beginning, because there are more important things to focus on, like the process of learning itself, your ability to come up with algorithms, and developing a commanding mastery of whatever language that you decide to pursue first. Ultimately, your job is to be great at programming, not a specific language. You're being paid to solve problems and use whatever language that is appropriate for the solution. Don't fret the specifics of which tech stack the Coding Bootcamp specializes in. If all other 4 rules of thumb check out for a coding bootcamp, then I would let language just be a second priority. Okay, so that's it for the 5 rules of thumb for choosing a coding bootcamp. Thanks for watching this video. If you found this information helpful, I would love it if you liked this video and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out my coding career newsletter, thecommit.dev. I'm writing it for all the people who want to get a job in tech as a software engineer. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.